The village orphan. In every village, there is a story that lingers like the cry of a distant drum, soft yet unforgettable. Some stories speak of bravery, others of wealth and triumph. But there are those stories that bleed sorrow, whispered from mouth to mouth, as though the wind itself carries them across time. This is the story of a little child whose life was carved by loss, rejection, and loneliness. A story that reminds us that even the smallest flame can struggle to survive in the cruelest storm. This is the story of the village orphan. Once, in the quiet village of Adumasa, where the moon shone bright over rustling palm trees and the river sang its lullabies, there lived a little girl named Efua. She was only 7 years old when the hands of tragedy gripped her life. Her father, a hard-working farmer, was crushed by a falling tree while clearing his farmland. Her mother, who had been her only comfort, fell ill soon after, and with no money for medicine, she too was carried away by death's merciless hand. Within a year, Efua had no one left. The villagers pitied her at first. Some gave her food, others old clothes. But pity, like the morning dew, dries up quickly under the sun. Soon, Efua became the burdened child. She moved from one house to another, treated not as family, but as a servant. She fetched water before dawn, her small feet dragging along the rough path. She swept compounds larger than her strength could manage. At night, she slept on cold floors, her stomach often empty, her heart heavy with tears she dared not cry aloud. For in the village, orphans were seen not as children to be loved, but as mouths to be fed. Despite her suffering, Efua had something rare, a gentle spirit. She loved to sit under the giant baobab tree, humming softly to herself, dreaming of a day she might be loved again. Sometimes, when the moon was bright, she whispered to the stars, as if her parents could hear her. "Papa, Mama, do you see me? Do you know I'm still here?" But the stars gave no answer, only silence. Years passed. Efua grew thinner, quieter, her eyes carrying a sadness too heavy for a child. She longed for school, for laughter, for friendship, but those belonged to children with parents. For her, there was only work, hunger, and the endless ache of being unwanted. One rainy evening, after returning from the stream, with a pot too heavy for her small head, she slipped on the muddy slope. The pot broke into pieces, and the water spilled away. The woman she stayed with beat her harshly, cursing her as useless. That night, shivering under the leaking roof, Efua wept until her voice was gone. The villagers heard her cries, but turned away. They had grown used to them, and so, Efua faded quietly in the heart of Adumasa, like a flower that bloomed in the wrong season. She became a shadow, a forgotten soul among the living. But her story did not end there. For years later, whenever the wind blew through the village at night, mothers would hush their children and whisper, "Do you hear that? That is Efua's cry, the cry of the orphan who only wanted love." And to this day, beneath the baobab tree, villagers say, if you sit still and listen carefully, you will hear the soft voice of a little girl asking the same question she once asked the stars. "Papa, Mama, do you see?"